We're ready.
We're ready?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd, and we have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion? Motion by Dan Aram,
Second?
second by Eric Ellenberg. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Our first item up for action is the preliminary levy certification for property taxes payable in 2026. And I will welcome up Director of Finance and Operations, Mert Woodard, to take us through this. Board, do you remember, you've seen this information several times, and these are just final numbers that we've received from MDE. And this needs to be approved by September 30th. So that's why we're taking action at tonight's special session. So thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Chair Gabler. Good evening, or good afternoon rather, members of the school board, Superintendent Bittman. As Chair Gabler just mentioned, we did preview very preliminary information at our September 8th regular meeting. At that time, the Department of Education had not published the first edition of the levy limitation and certification report. Subsequent to that, we've had several different runs. While those figures are still not fully completed, we're highly confident that the final figures that you'll see in December will be within 10 basis points of the numbers in the report that you're viewing today. I'm not planning to review every single levy category in great detail tonight. I'll simply provide a brief highlight over some of the major changes, talk through some next steps, provide a little bit of supplementary information about jurisdictions that affect the residents of Edina, and then we will move it to you for formal action. In terms of the levy itself, unlike cities and counties, the school district, as you know, has very limited authority to set its own property tax levy and revenues for the subsequent school year. That is because in the state of Minnesota, the vast majority of the levy categories are in part or fully dependent on student enrollment. And so the revenue that we get, more than 85%, is tied directly to student enrollment, and many of those components are actually tied to voter approval as well. More than 50% of our general fund revenue is tied in some way to voter approval, primarily our operating referendum authority and capital projects levy. The enrollment that we've determined is adequate to finance our operations next school year is 8,740, and measured as of adjusted daily membership, or ADM, and that's an increase over the 8,670 that you levied for in December of 24 for the current fiscal year. That 8,740 might be relatively conservative, but we feel pretty strongly that's going to provide adequate funding for next school year. If we do end up serving more students, we'll get those positive adjustments 2 years subsequent to this year. In terms of the per pupil authority on that formula, we're going to receive $2,234.89 next school year. That's opposed to the $2,260.63 you levied for last December. That $2,234.89 is an estimate at this point. Next fall, we'll have a final figure, and then 2 years from now, we'll receive a positive or negative adjustment depending on what that final figure is. Overall, we expect new revenue of $918,433 from the operating referendum category. The next major levy category in our general fund that I'll review tonight is our capital projects levy, or our tech levy. In this district, we almost exclusively use it for technology purposes. That one's going up $286,271 to a total of $9,470,865. That levy is increasing by 3.12% in direct proportion to the net tax capacity increase for all properties in the city of Edina. That's the only levy category that behaves in that way. Overall, for general fund revenue, we're expecting an increase of 4.8%. That's going to represent about $2 million of new money for us to operate the school district next school year rather. The community service fund is actually seeing a decrease of about $133,000. That's completely attributable to prior year adjustments. In fiscal year 23, we spent more on school age care than we levied for in 2022. And so that positive adjustment is coming to us in fiscal year 27, or fiscal year 26 rather, which is the current year. Next year, we're having stable adjustments, so no positive adjustments that are significant. And so that return to normal is resulting in an overall decrease to the community service fund levy. That fund will have enough money to operate, so the lack of positive adjustments is not going to hinder their operations at all. Finally, we have our debt service fund, a 5.73% increase, just over $1 million. totally driven by the scheduled principal and interest payments on our 6 outstanding general obligation bonds. So as those principal and interest payments come due, we'll levy for the amount necessary to pay those until they are fully defeased in 2038. Overall, our levy is increasing by an estimated 4.75% compared to the 4.88% of last year, the 5.27% of 2 years ago, and the 9.27% of 3 years ago. So we're, as mentioned in the previous meeting, we're heading back to that kind of normal range of between 4 and 5% that we've seen historically over the last 10 years. In terms of how this affects taxpayers, we'll provide more detailed information over a number of different types of properties at our Truth and Taxation meeting in December. I can share, however, that 2 other jurisdictions that affect homeowners and property owners in Edina, the city of Edina and Hennepin County, have already set their preliminary levies. I believe the city passed last week an 11.03% increase to the city portion of the levy, and Hennepin County has gone with a 7.79% increase. Of course, both those numbers are subject to change, as is ours, up until that December certification. But just want to give people a flavor of what's going on, particularly in the Hennepin County area, where you'll see cities are having to levy for more and more to keep up with their operations. In terms of next steps, we'll have our formal recommendation to you to certify the levy at the maximum. So rather than a dollar figure, you'll certify the maximum, which provides us flexibility to increase the levy prior to the December certification. I don't foresee that we'll need to do that. However, customarily, that's typically what we do. Parcel-specific notices will be mailed out by the county in early November. We'll have our Truth and Taxation hearing, which is required by law, at our December 8th regular meeting, and later on that evening, we'll ask you to certify the levy for next school year. Happy to answer any questions about my remarks today or in the more detailed memo that's provided in your packet. If not, the recommended action is before you.
Board members, does anybody have any questions for Director Woodard? I thank you for this thorough information that you gave us last meeting as well. So, all right, seeing no further questions, we will take action. We will now vote to approve the preliminary levy certification on property taxes payable in 2026. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Ruby and Ellenberg. All those in favor of approving the preliminary levy certification for property taxes payable in 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and the action is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.